who I've admired for many years. Charlie and I have known each other for what seems to be nearly 20 years. We have had the privilege of hosting Charlie in both our institutes here in Milwaukee and in Madison. And we're just thrilled to have him today available to connect with all of our students and any professionals that are watching today, for Charlie to share a little bit more about the inspiration and his motivation around the creative craft of hairdressing. So thank you again to everyone for being with us, and we'll get started. So just waiting for Charlie to kind of come in. Oh, perfect.
Hello.
Hey, Charlie. Jamie Anderson is our producer who is coordinating this. And I'll tell you, you're doing a fabulous job, Jamie. Thank you, Charlie, for being on the line today. And I'm really excited to have the opportunity to kind of interview you. For the students and professionals that are joining us, you're welcome to kind of ask questions, type in questions on the sidebar. And I'm certainly going to try to answer as many as I can today as I'm in discussion with Charlie. So again, thank you, Charlie, for being with us. Again, you've been hairdressing for so many years. Do you want to tell us a little bit about your story?
I've been doing hair since 1988. So I guess that's 32 years. And I was in beauty school before that in high school. So I went to a vocational school, and Aveda and TG, and I think one or two other companies came in. And I thought, I want to work for one of these companies. They're so cool. And Aveda had a cool makeup at the time, Indra, and I was really drawn to that. So I bought all the makeup. And then when I got out of school, I started assisting at one of the coolest salons in Denver, because I just thought, if I'm going to do this, I want to go to the best salon. Mm-hmm. And so I went to the Aveda Advanced Academy and met Horst in 1980. In 88, my first year of doing hair. So that was pretty amazing. And I worked with Aveda for a long time, became a platform artist, started my own salon. It was a booth rent salon, and it was a commission salon. We became a concept salon. I became an educator for Aveda because I saw people, Catherine Hammernick and Edward Ebel, doing the Midwest Beauty Show. And I was like, I want to do that. I want to be on stage with them. Mm-hmm. And so Catherine became one of my teachers. John Maroney became one of my teachers. And Edward became one of my teachers, Oscar Bond, and taught me how to cut hair, taught me how to public speak. And then, of course, working not directly with Horst, but in his periphery was very exciting. I remember one of the most amazing moments I had with him was right after he got back from the big summit that all the world leaders had after the Exxon oil spill. And he was there with, like Gorbachev, and talking about the world and the impact that we have on the environment. And I was like, oh my God, this is amazing what a hairdresser could really do. Besides just doing hair behind the chair. So I worked at Aveda for many years, all the way up till 2007. And basically it was just time for me to move on, because I'd done everything at Aveda that I could possibly do without being the creative director. And obviously Antoinette's not going anywhere. So, I mean, she's been there for, I don't know, almost 20 years now. And I don't see any sign of that ever changing. And so I thought, I want to spread my wings and move on. Went on a reality show. Downsized my salon, and then became sort of like what I call like a manufacturer's slut. I worked for Revlon Professional, had an amazing gig in Europe and South America, and for 3 years I worked with Scruples, and that was incredible because I got to work directly with the ownership of the company and see how that all works. I learned so much about distribution, so much about the industry from Mia Ligori and her brother and sister. And I stopped owning a salon a long time ago, and I've just been on this like weird journey of being a booth renter, and that's a strange odyssey, even for someone that's been in it for so long. I found my my dream space, a photo studio that I was doing clients out of, doing classes and doing shoots, and then the building sold. So I had that for 3 years. So now I'm going to be working out of my house. It's something I never thought I would ever do. And in the midst of the last 5 years, I've started with my dear friends from Aveda and from Redken and many other product lines, Kuhn, Purology at the time. She's back with Redken, Ruth Roth. We started a co-op of hairstylists. And our main thing is Beauty Underground, which we call our
Mm-hmm.
consortium. I love that word. That's my favorite word right now, consortium. And, we do classes, we do events, we've done New York Fashion Week, we've come out with limited edition like tools. We do all sorts of things as jam session of artists, but our main goal is to teach hairdressers the value that they have in the industry and how basically we are all the masters of our own destiny. I'm also involved in NAHA. Obviously, I've been a host, I've been a NAHA winner, I've been a NAHA nominee, I've been a NAHA loser many times. And I'm currently on the NAHA committee, and I'm on a task force in charge of rules. I think that's it.
Wow. So many different facets to your career. And I think it just has a lot to say about the industry as a whole and all the career opportunity that's possible depending on where you want to go. So you couldn't be more of a better living example of what you can do with your career in the industry. So high five to you, Charlie. I'm going to kind of bring us back because you said a lot, in that opening statement, as your journey has just been so diverse. If I can, just for a quick moment, Charlie, I don't know that everyone on the line knows who I am, and they might be like, who is this woman who keeps asking Charlie all these questions? I forgot to kind of introduce myself there. So in case I haven't had the privilege of meeting anyone who is watching the line right now, I'm Susan Haise, and I am the owner of the Institute of Beauty and Wellness in Milwaukee, Wisconsin, and the Aveda Institute in Madison, Wisconsin. And just super thrilled to be here today. As Charlie and I have known each other for a long time. So glad that we're here at this app, having the opportunity, Charlie. So thank you. With that being said, Charlie, you started back in beauty school, and you talked about your beauty school experience. It started early in your connection with Horace. And so talk a little bit about, you're talking to some beauty school students on the line, some are professionals as well. We'll get into your creative process in a couple of minutes, but what advice do you have for students currently in beauty school right now?
A couple things. First and foremost, beauty school is predominantly about learning skills. So all that practicing that annoys you, just keep doing it, because if you have a basic concept and command of traditional classic hairdressing skills, that will last you your entire career and you will refer back to them forever. I still think about my pin curls and my finger waves and my perm wraps and my roller sets and all of these things, which I don't even know if you guys are doing in beauty school anymore, but
we do.
The classic disciplines of doing hair will never fail you. So that's number one. And number two, I would say, pay attention to the industry around you. Pay attention to who's working for the manufacturers, who's doing celebrity hair, who's doing runway hair. I forgot to say in my opening that I worked on New York Fashion Week for a long time, and I worked in Milan under a bunch of runway masters. And a lot of people might think that doesn't apply to clients, but it's directly where women get an idea of what to look like, is the runway, is the fashion magazines and the celebrities. So we need to pay attention to pop culture. We need to pay attention to the industry, and that will help you identify how you might like to fit into that industry. I find that a lot of hairdressers and beauty school students alike just don't pay attention to anything bigger than the small vacuum of what they have at in front of them. And so I encourage you to read your trade magazines, really pay attention to trend, and then decide what you like and who you are and what you might like your philosophy to be. And of course it can change. And then the third thing I would say is make goals for yourself. Make 3-month goals, make 5-month goals. 3-month goals, 6-month goals, year goals, 5-year goals, 10-year goals. And then what is your wildest dream? What do you want to do? And because I find that if you don't know where you're going, you can't ever get there. I mean, and again, that can change. But I also find that a lot of hairdressers don't just do simple goal setting. Sit by yourself and say, why am I doing this? What do I want to do? What do I like? It's going to make me happy. So those are the 3 things I would say to folks now.
Really powerful words of wisdom, Charlie. That's fantastic. So in the beauty school experience, you refer back to just really understanding that this time right now is so important to just practice those basic skills. And we certainly do still go over them. We use them as often as we can. you know, doing fashion shows and things like that when you started out, Charlie, a lot of that stuff is pro bono, right? I mean, how much pro bono work do you think over the years you've done to help really build who you are today?
Well, I was one of the founders of Denver Fashion Week in the last decade, and I would say that even though I did get paid for that, it almost ended up as a wash. So I've been in the business, like I said, since the 80s, and I'm still doing free work. You'll never not do free work. The thing is, you want to strategize what is worth it and what isn't. And at a certain point, you do have to start getting back, or else you could be poor. If you just say, I'll do everything for free forever. But there are certain things that, I mean, I do runway a lot for free because I love it. There are certain times that I make money, but most of the times that I did New York Fashion Week, I was paying the designers. We were sponsoring. So I wasn't making anything, I was paying. Because that's what we used as our marketing strategy for our salon, is that it was unique. We were in Colorado in the early 2000s doing runway shows, you know, with Bobby Brown as the lead at makeup and me as hair, doing supermodels. So that was, to me, worth it. This is crazy for anyone that's old enough to know, we advertised in the phone book and saved money for New York Fashion Week. And that was our marketing strategy. That was it. And we partnered with Aveda a lot too on those. So, you know, fashion is definitely not probably for 99.9% of hairdressers going to be a lucrative thing, but it's a soul fulfilling proposition, and it's fun. And it's important.
It's certainly a resume builder that you'll always be able to talk to your clients about, certainly as well. I know right now for stylists in the salon, in order for them to go to Fashion Week, they have to go through the classes first. And so sometimes in order to do those classes, it just gets very expensive. And then you have to fly to New York on your own dime. And pay the hotel fees, obviously, that are much higher during that time as well. So it just can be a lot, but clearly, you know, it pays off, which is great. I'm just reading some of the questions that are coming in from students. And I'm going to get to your students, you guys, but the questions, I'm just going to go a little bit further now that you've come out of beauty school and now you're going into the professional salon industry. And so you said some of that started off with Horace. I'm assuming you were working with him, you know, in the salons at the time, and then you moved to Denver.
No, I didn't actually work with Horst until I already was a salon owner.
Okay.
And I never worked directly with Horst. I worked with him as a professional, I should clarify.
Okay.
So I was a concept salon owner. I became a concept salon owner in, I think, 92. And then I was asked to be an educator by our local distributor, Pacifico. At the time. And so I started off doing classes for $50 for Aveda, running around Wyoming and Colorado in my car. And I loved it. I have to say, I didn't have a problem at all. And then I worked my way all the way up to doing, you know, collections with Ray Chavello and Antoinette and the rest. So the salon, I started off as a booth rental owner simply because that was what was going on at the time I became a hairdresser. From the time I got out of beauty school in 88 to 90, there was this proliferation of booth rental, and that's what everybody wanted. So when I opened my salon, that's what I did. It was a nightmare. I have to say, being a booth rental salon is probably one of the most difficult things you could ever do in the salon industry, because you really have very little control over the business that you own. I mean, literally every chair is its own business. And it also takes I think they can be done very, very well, but it has to be the right type of person doing it. And you can't do it without knowing what you're doing. So you need to start at a commission salon. I worked as an assistant for 2 years. I was a colorist. I was a shampoo person. I blow dried hair, whatever, before I was on the floor. And I think that everyone who gets out of beauty school I think the two things that I would recommend is that you work at a commission salon and train for at least 2 years before you even think of going into being a booth renter or a salon suite renter. Because first of all, after 2 years, you still need a clientele. I have so many kids that are getting out of beauty school, and you know, they pay the money to go to beauty school, and then they get money from their parents to open a suite and spend all this money on product. And they're sitting there in the back room of a hallway in a salon suite place with no clients. And then they quit the industry, and it's just very backward. You need to do, booth rental is wonderful and it's freeing and it's great for when you're old like me. And you want to be by yourself and you've done the others. I mean, it's not something for a new young stylist. You need to be around other people. And I don't mean necessarily young in age. I mean new to the industry. So if you've got out of business and are going to beauty school at 45, you definitely need to immerse yourself in a busy, fancy salon and get some training before you try to rent. It's just incredibly difficult to build a clientele by yourself.
I think it's also a win-win-win when you can have those open conversations with the salon owner, you know, to make sure that like there's a give and take. It's not just working at the salon, gaining a clientele, and then jumping ship. That there's an open conversation about that. Otherwise, karma can be kind of an ugly thing as well.
Well, I was a salon owner for I think 20 years. I'd have to count exactly, and I had so many spin-off, you know, salon, and people did it in very nasty ways. They did it in nice ways, and it is heartbreaking as a salon owner when you've trained someone and given your heart and soul to them and they think you're getting rich off of them. That was my favorite story. My favorite story was that I was going to New York and going in limousines and buying designer clothes with all the money that I was making from my staff. I was like, yeah, I made so much off that highlight you did on your mom last week. That was awesome. You know, so I get it. But I also get it because I've worked after being a salon owner. I've worked, well, before being a commissioned stylist as a new person in the industry, and then being a veteran after owning my own salon, being a commissioned stylist and a booth rent stylist. It's annoying to have a boss. A lot of hairdressers, we go into it because we don't want a boss, but guess what? It's just part of life.
Yeah.
It's just what we do to get our credibility, and leaving is just so important. A while ago, I figured out that we were stronger as salon owners and stylists if we're friends with each other. There were 60 salons in the neighborhood that I worked at in Denver. And I thought, I don't want to be enemies with these people. If we're worried about everybody jumping ship and going a walkout, going to the next salon, if we're all friends, it's going to be harder for that to happen. And it just made everybody stronger by us being friends, by there being a coalition of salon owners. And then when the stylists did leave, you know, it was a lot easier for everybody to maintain friendships. But I think burning bridges is trouble, because you never know when you might have to go back and work somewhere again, because I've had a lot of successes, but I've also had a lot of failures, and I want my options left open.
There's a question from one of the students that is, in what year did you feel you had achieved an established career? So how many years should they expect, you know, in order to feel like they've established a clientele?
Well, a clientele and a career is two different things. I started making more money than I dreamed when I was 19, and I thought it was really cool if I always had $100 in my pocket. You know, I'm 19 years old. It's 1988, and I thought I was rich, running around with always having $100 in cash. So success is subjective, and I was living for it. I guess I started in the year and a half of being on the floor. I was making as much as I make now, only working 2 days a week behind the chair. So that was pretty amazing. So it doesn't take long if you're in a busy salon, but you can't do it if you're not trained, you don't have the confidence, and also there's not the clients walking in the doors. So I was working in a very busy salon, and I was getting overflow. So I started making money quickly because I worked for 2 years as an assistant, and they all knew me, they trusted me, they sent their kids to me, and I was making great tips. So as far as being a success, I think my biggest arrival moment was winning Hairstylist of the Year for the first time in 2002. That was really amazing. And also maybe performing with my salon at the Congress Festival the first time, which I think was, I'm not sure, 98, I don't know, 90 something. That was just, and Horst came back and loved what we were doing, and that was a pinch me moment. Yes.
That's awesome. More questions coming in from the students is, you know, watching trends. So how often do you study the trends, and what are your favorite resources for following trends in the industry? You know, what do you study? What do you read? What blogs? You know, where are you going for your inspiration?
I turn to fashion magazines, and whether they're online or, I personally still love holding a Vogue magazine in my hand. So if you're only going to read 2 magazines a year, read Vogue in March and Vogue in September, because that will give you the spring trends and the fall trends. And I have a formula that I don't want to go into. It'll take a lot of time, but Vogue will tell you everything you need to know, from hair, makeup, political trends, social trends, movies, books, all that stuff. So if you read them that even twice a year, you'll get a handle for a lot of that stuff. But I beyond that, I would say if you're into magazines, and I think you have to be if you're a hairdresser, you need to know the trends. So I say read a very commercial magazine like a Vogue. If you're American, read a foreign magazine. Now, obviously, we can't read French or we can't read Italian, but look at the pictures and see what they're doing in other places. Japanese Vogue, I love that. And then get a really crazy underground magazine. And a lot of these now are online. You can find a lot of trends that way. And I just Google runway shows too. Paris Fashion Week, London Fashion Week, Milan Fashion Week, New York. And I watch shows. I watched my favorite Japanese designer show today before you and I had a phone call.
Yeah, it's great to look at YouTube these days because you can get a copy of every runway show almost out there today. So it's pretty powerful. Who is your favorite Japanese designer?
Well, it's almost a tie between Issey Miyake and Yohji Yamamoto and Rei Kawakubo, but Rei Kawakubo of Comme des Garçons is my favorite designer.
Fantastic.
Yeah.
Thank you. Moving a little bit into your creative process, Charlie, Jamie has some photos that you sent. Jamie, are you able to load those up? Perfect. So maybe can you just highlight on the first image then, Jamie, and maybe try to bring it up a little larger? Then Charlie, do you want to speak a little bit to this image? And
this is these aren't in order. I didn't send them to them in order, so we'll just go as they come. This is from 2007 when I won International Stylist of the Year at the Canadian Mirror Awards. And it was after I had worked a lot with Serge Normant, and I still love curling hair, but it seems kind of funny now because most of the hair is seen from the back curled. But doing this in 2007 was still exotic. People were really flat ironing hair a lot in the 2007, and so curling irons and doing a pompadour with a bow in the hair, like this sort of fine, fussier type of hairdressing, was a little bit more rare, I guess you would say, at the time.
That's great. So what about the makeup? Like, how are you collaborating on, with the other, professionals who are helping to collaborate on your looks? I'm assuming you're doing more of the styling and cutting and not as much of the color. Is that right?
That's correct. It depends though, because some of them I have colored the girl's hair. It just depends. This is actually her natural hair. This is the same makeup artist as the one before with the bow.
Right.
And it's Leslie Mansell. She was with Aveda for a long time, and that's how I met her.
Yeah.
And now she has Beauty for Real Cosmetics and is a celebrity and fashion makeup artist out of Miami. We collaborate a lot, and I just love her. I think we match really well because she loves things to be pretty, even if they're kind of weird. Our goal is to always make it as beautiful as possible. This was from that same 2007 collection when I won International Stylist of the Year. And I was really, back then, a lot of hairdressers were scared to style hair.
Yeah.
Lately, styling has become a lot more popular. I still think a lot of people don't really know how because they're not getting trained properly. But doing a finger wave that sits off the head like this is something that I still love doing. So this was a sort of a exaggerated 1930s kind of shape, and we were going for a glamour, definitely a glamour look in this collection.
How much do you find getting the right model, impacts the outcome of the work?
It's incredibly important. The models make you or break you. This woman is not a professional model, but I started working with her. This is from 2010 when I was the first person to win NAHA People's Choice. I was also up for Hairstylist of the Year with this. I didn't win that, but I won People's Choice. So this was a woman that worked in the salon, and she just was so exquisitely beautiful that I asked her to model for me a lot. Also, these are pictures that Babek shot, and shooting with Babek. I did win once in 2002 before this, and you'll see those coming up. But I had a long dry spell. I was hiring photographers out of New York that didn't really know about NAHA.
Right.
Babek is a Canadian photographer, and he still to this day wins tons of NAHAs. And so once I started working with him, the first year I worked with him, I got 3 nominations,
Yeah.
and I won twice with Babek. So
Yeah.
I will say that I think Babek and myself did have a 50-50 collaboration, because when I look back on these, I see Babek a lot, but Babek has a very strong style. And I was like, I'm not going to be dominated, because I hate being bossed around. You know this about me. And so this is still gonna be my picture. I am paying for it. But
Yeah.
so when I look back at these, I want to still like them. That's always my goal, that there's a certain timelessness quality or a certain classically beautiful aspect of them. This is funny because you asked me earlier about spending money. These were recycled hair show things that I made into a new hair shape.
Yeah.
And I got flowers from the craft store, and that's a tablecloth wrapped around her that was $10.
Oh my gosh, that's amazing. The reason Charlie's bringing that up, you guys, is because today a lot of entries for NAHA have a lot of manufacturers' money behind it. Not all, but some. But they can be very expensive. Hiring a talented model. B, as Charlie just acknowledged, Babek is super talented. He's come into the Institute of Beauty and Wellness in Milwaukee, and he's done presentations around what he's looking for, how does he inspire, and so forth. And so, yeah, I mean, Babek certainly, he's very experienced, and clearly he said, you had 3 nominations the first year when you shot with him. So
Yeah.
how powerful is that? So thank you. Do you want to walk us to the next image?
Yeah, this is one of my most popular images from that collection, and it was really fun because this is another reason to enter NAHA. I'll talk more specifically about NAHA, why to enter later, but this collection is from the same collection that I won People's Choice with, and when I went to do the show in the International Salon and Spa Expo in Long Beach the next year, this was like a 30 by 20-foot banner that they put
Wow.
to advertise the show. So that's pretty amazing. And sometimes there are things that don't win. It doesn't always have to be a winning image. A lot
Yeah.
of times it is, and sometimes it's things that are nominated, or sometimes it's things that PBA just likes. So
Yeah.
when you enter, they will get published a lot. I was really experimenting a lot here with movement without wind, making it almost look as if there were wind, or look as the hair was moving. This is a crimped shape that I sort of just molded and sprayed and teased and manipulated the hair on set with Babek.
Mm-hmm. Interesting how the use of tools, clearly it's a crimped look on the hair. And, how many different irons do you have in your toolkit today?
Well, I have a lot of different sizes of irons, but I
Yeah.
predominantly use a Marcel iron, which is the kind that is not a spring where the arm moves. And
Yeah.
I would highly recommend that all of you in beauty school, and if you aren't comfortable with them as a professional, to train yourself on a Marcel iron. You'll never go back to the spring iron.
Yeah.
I have so many sizes of the Marcel irons, and I also have waving irons, crimping irons, flat irons, all of it. I don't know. I can't answer that. I have a lot. Maybe 50. I don't
More
know.
than you can mention, but you should note all of the students at the Institute use Marcel irons. We've never used a spring iron at our Institute. So I'm a firm believer, along with you, that is the professional tool of choice, for sure. Thanks. I love the next image as well. Charlie, do you want to speak about that?
This is one of my favorite updos that I do. I think of it as a 1940s design, but it's also quite 80s. There was a movie. This is from the collection. I also did this with Babak that I won Hairstylist of the Year for the second time at NAHA, North American Hairstylist of the Year, and it was sort of based on Blade Runner, the sci-fi movie, and then also Catherine Deneuve and David Bowie and Susan Sarandon were in a vampire movie in the 80s called The Hunger. And Catherine Deneuve wore her hair like this, and I was always inspired by that. And then the main robot character, Rachel, in Blade Runner.
Yeah.
And the reason I say I do this all the time is hairdressers are so intimidated by doing this, but it's really not that hard. It does take a little bit of patience and practice, but it really, once you get it, it's like a finger wave or a braid. You could do it in your sleep. But there was the American Horror Story a couple years back that Lady Gaga was in, and she was definitely paying a very serious reference to the movie The Hunger that I was talking about, and it's almost identical. I did this actually at a thing with an event with Stephen Moody of Sassoon and now Wella and Eden Sassoon in LA, a live event, and I had done it right after Lady Gaga was in the show, and I put all of the mix of those references together in an Instagram post, because I think when you look at an image like this, there are so many elements that go into it, and it's important to know your references so that you can understand that mix.
Yeah, you'll be interested to know that Stephen Moody will be in both institutes in August this
Well,
year.
tell him I said hi. He's one of my main idols. I love him.
Yeah, I think he's super talented too. He'll be doing cutting training for all the students, which is fantastic. Great image. Thank you for sharing it. Where do you get your creative inspiration from? You mentioned movies, Blade Runner, the model. Like, how did you put this together, and how much work are you doing before the shoot
Right.
to plan and prepare?
I do. Now you can do this digitally. I still like to do tear sheets. I do save things in my phone a lot and put them in albums. So what I do, the way to storyboard for me that's the easiest is I gather things all year long.
Yeah.
And then the reason I like to do this with actual tear sheets, you could print them out from your phone on your computer. Is if you start storyboarding them, I like this kind of photo. I like this kind of makeup. I love these wardrobe. I love these hairstyles. Stories will start to emerge naturally. I learned that from Ray Cervello. It's a natural way to storyboard. There's a Japanese practice that does this, and you can do it with a staff or by yourself. And it just is a very fair, democratic way of unveiling a story that's already there, so nobody feels like their voice isn't heard. But I do it myself just because my problem is I have too many ideas, so I always have to narrow down my ideas. But it always starts with a certain concept of like feeling. I call this collection Night Crawlers, and they were supposed to be like nocturnal bar crawling vampire ladies, sort of like the movie The Hunger, but very chic. Because the vampire in this movie and like Lady Gaga's vampire, they're different. They're not scary vampires. They're beautiful vampires. And I think this model is one of my favorite models. I don't work with her much anymore because she's not modeling that much, but her bone structure and her fair skin and the fine blonde hair. And when I was on set with Vivek, I was like, it's just sort of like not speaking to me. So I started teasing the top, and those two like little horn pieces or whatever just kind of emerged, and I was like, oh my god, I like this. Let's just shoot that and see if it works like that.
Yeah, the composition. How do you train your eye, or what do you think it is around size, proportion, and shape? I find it's one of the most challenging thing to study and to train on as a new hairdresser. But here, this is composition in your photo, where her chin comes out to the head.
Yeah, I think it's something that you learn over time, but I would say in a nutshell, it's drama. As soon as they move a certain way, or I always like long angles. I like long necks. I like angles in their arms, seeing their bone structure. I don't like smushed down faces into the neck to where it looks like they have no neck. I love a graceful, elongated, elegant look to my photos. And that's one of the things I liked about Vivek is he's obsessed with long necks, like giraffe necks. So I love that look. To me, it's very high fashion looking. But I would say, look at your lines as if they were a drawing in the hairdo.
Yeah, for sure.
And I sketch a lot of my collections before I ever show them to a photographer, and practice on you can practice on mannequins and photograph them with your phone, so you can kind of get an idea of a composition that's dynamic.
It's fantastic. Is there another image, Jamie? I think this is a series here, isn't it? 2 or 3?
Yeah, there's I think I have all 5 of these. This is the first year that I won Hairstylist of the Year. And I went to New York, and we actually shot these, some of them on 9/11, 2001, which was insane. I had hired all these really famous models. The the black lady and the guy were big models. The guy was a Calvin Klein model. I spent $3,000 on him.
Wow.
I don't regret it, but I wouldn't do that again.
Yeah.
And then the rest of them, like this model, was girls that worked in the salon because everything was shut down. And our entire salon was there for a runway show. We had spent $10,000 to sponsor a designer on September 10th that went out of business on September 11th.
Mm.
So that was crazy. But it was, we hired an amazing photographer who's now very famous and would probably never work with me again. But she was just starting out at the time, and we wanted to finish the shoot. So the girls that were in the salon became the models. This was a hairstylist that worked at the salon at the time. And the photographer was really instrumental in the posing here. And she had a really great sense of like femininity and sensuality and drama. So I followed her lead a lot. She was amazing. Working with her, I definitely would say changed the way I worked behind the camera.
Mm-hmm. I'm assuming the nails are not hers.
No, they're fake nails. And it's so funny because this is so in now. And
Yeah.
sometimes I look at these kind of nails and I'm like, oh my God, why did we do that? But I think, because I think nails are so ugly right now. I just hate them. But that's just my personal opinion. Like there's so much of everything. It's like drag queen makeup and extensions and 47 colors in the hair and drag queen, and then nail art. And it's just like, oh my God. But she was really into the long nails at the time too. They were very rare then. They were not normal. Like now, I don't think anybody would even notice the nails as being, but that was 2001.
But I think what hairdressers don't often understand is that to have these nails done and the makeup and the hair, the amount of time you have to invest in the studio on set.
Yeah.
It's just all these pieces of the puzzle take time to do.
We flew to New York twice. We flew to New York once to meet with the photographers for her to agree to do this and talk about all the ideas, which was like a 4-hour meeting, I think. And then we got I booked the models with the agencies, and I spent money on this shoot, but not all of them. I haven't spent tons of money on every single shoot that I've done. I've done shoots for, like one of my most successful shoots this year I did for free with my phone. I photographed it on my phone.
Wow.
So it's possible to do it. I think you need some experience. This is the Calvin Klein model. And also, I have a thing about models, no shirt pictures for guys. I'm just like, it's such a cliche. So, the water being sprayed on him and the leather piece, and then having his disheveled hair. And I love this picture because I think I could do it. I could have done it today and it would be perfectly acceptable. I don't look at this and think necessarily 2002. That was 18 years ago. And I really try to make my work timeless. And sometimes I have succeeded at that and sometimes I haven't. And it's painful to look back at the ones where I got too caught up in a moment. So if you're entering a contest or putting stuff even on your social media, remember that will live forever. So really think about what your identity is, your philosophy, and are you going to be proud of this forever? Or is it just a fleeting moment that you might be like, oh my God, what was I thinking later?
Yeah. Excellent. Beautiful.
This, not even really an updo. I was just playing with the model's texture. She had a relaxer, but it wasn't relaxed super straight. And I just went in and we were working with kind of a Nefertiti shape, and it's literally just curling ironed. And I just was picking it out with my fingers and building the shape with the photographer who was definitely directing me, almost like a hair mentor would.
Yeah. What do you find in the iron heat of textured hair versus fine hair? How are you changing the temperature when styling different hair types?
In general, you shouldn't go above 350 on anyone's hair. But sometimes if it's a model, it could be a black model, it could be a Latina model, it could be a Jewish model, it could be a redheaded model, or even a blonde that just has really thick, heavy, coarse, textured hair, and you can get away with more heat. The key on these, though, if you're doing that on thick hair like that, you don't want it on that hair very long. So you're going through it quickly. You're not letting that bake in the hair because you'll just burn it off. Yeah, so you don't want to go high very often. This is another one that is sort of about finger waves and that amazing shape, and her her long neck and her nose, and just kind of pointy. We just loved her profile. So everything was. She almost looks like a gorgeous dog in a way to me, like one of those show dogs. It's like really elegant, like a statue. I just love her face. I think she's so beautiful, and I loved what the fashion stylist, who was a friend of the photographer, did with. She sort of made this cape out of black roses.
Yeah. Since we're running out of time, do you mind, Charlie, if we skip the next image and go to the last image?
Yeah, that's fine. That's fine. This is we just won in 2018 the Team NAHA, and so we, after a long streak of not winning anything, that was 8 years. Yeah. 2011, I won People's Choice, and then winning this really helped, and then winning the Hairbrained Video Awards. I was like, okay, we're still in the game. Because I don't want to define myself by winning awards, but if you're entering every year and you're not winning, you sort of feel like, oh my God, am I just not doing what people like anymore? Or, am I out of touch?
So you were actually applying every year, even when you weren't acknowledged.
Yep.
Well, I think that's really humbling and interesting for students to hear, because I think that sometimes if they applied once and didn't win, they would just stop applying. And I think there's so much, value to hearing someone as successful as you are, who's like, hey, I haven't won a lot, but there are those opportunities then where you do win. So now you're on the panel, you're on the judging panel for NAHA, Charlie. And so tell us a little bit about how that process has been going. And,
this year I won't be able to be a judge because we've all decided that it's better. If you're going to enter, you can't be a judge. Even though I couldn't obviously judge anything that I had entered, any categories that I had entered, I was usually we judge about 3 categories each judge. So generally I was judging men's, newcomer, and student. And then I'm on the committee, and we're always trying to improve and clarify and refine the process. Like since I've been on the committee, we separated classic contemporary into cutting and styling, because I was like, I don't know how you can judge a collection that's got 3 short haircuts and then 3 updos. How do you decide one's better than? I mean, it's like, it's kind of crazy. It's like, I don't know. So, and a lot of other people felt the same way. So, there's a lot. I wouldn't say it's like arguing. There's a lot of debate. We have a lot of healthy conversation about what should be and what should not be in the contest. We're always trying to make it more fair and more transparent and all of those things. I used to think that there was some like big conspiracy or whatever behind it, because it took me 8 years to win the first time or get my first nomination. So when Van Council won in, I think 98 or 90, I don't remember what it was. No, it was like 92 or something. I started entering and I didn't get anything. Like longer than 8 years. I think it might have been 10 years. It was 2002 before I finally got in. So,
you bring up so many great points about all these amazing hairdressers. For any new students who are not aware, when we mention the acronym NAHA, that is the North American Hairdresser Awards. So it's the Canadian market and the US market who all get together and, submit for North America. And then Charlie has been one of the judges and has been on the panel for some time. And again, he said he can't be a judge this year because he's actually, submitted for the award this year. So for any students who aren't quite understanding what NAHA is, that's what it is, the North American Hairdresser Awards. They moved from Las Vegas in July to now being in January at the Long Beach show. So earlier there was a term used called PBA, and PBA is the Professional Beauty Association. And the Professional Beauty Association, NAHA, is one of the Professional Beauty Association's, programs. Thank you. Thank you. Excellent.
And also Mexico is part of North America, and Mexican hairdressers can enter. They don't all the time, but every once in a while somebody will pop up and get a nomination from Mexico, which I love. I wish we got so many more, because you get bored seeing the same things, and it would add some color.
Yes.
Color and excitement and different point of view.
Yeah.
On that. That's something that I'm working on, is diversity at NAHA. It's kind of white. And we do have one black hairdresser who wins all the time, but one is not enough. We need more. I mean, more color, more flavor.
Yeah, for sure. So we talked about, you know, sort of the consortium of hairdressers that you're collaborating with today, Charlie. And so, you know, how do people get connected to, you know, the Beauty Underground programming?
Well, we offer a few different things. It could be as simple as flying out and doing assisting on a photo shoot with me. And you might meet a few members here and a few members there. Every year, we usually offer some programs. They are paid programs because we're co-sponsoring. Like, we've done runway shows during NAHA. We definitely are sponsoring every year the International Hairdressing Awards in Madrid. And so what we do with that is we have hairdressers come. We team 2 hairdressers per model, cutting and cut. It's really however they want to divide it up. If they want to do everything together, or they want to do one colors and one cuts or whatever. And there's a runway show, and everybody comes out and their name's on the screen. So we're literally co-sponsoring together as a co-op. So you're not assisting, you're doing it. I don't even do hair. I'm a fashion stylist and choreographer and all of that. And so there's many ways to get involved in Beauty Underground. I guess I have requests almost every day asking, and everybody has kind of a different concept of what they want. So my thing is, you know, message me and then we'll talk about what you're looking for.
Sounds good. Clearly, Charlie, a lot of these students are going to be going out into the industry and applying for jobs with salons and mentoring. And do you have any advice for, you know, during this time of pandemic that's currently going on? A lot of face-to-face interviewing won't be happening. However, there's lots of different ways that students today can make videos and connect through Instagram. You know, how can they, you know, take their work on their mannequins and publish that and get it out? Any advice you have for solidifying their jobs after graduation?
I think that there's a few things, because that was a lot. There's a lot in there. I would say that in general, don't worry about having a great portfolio when you're going to be an assistant straight out of beauty school. I think when myself interviewing people, what I really wanted mostly was that somebody was really interested. And it's not so much I really want this job and you're like begging for it. I don't mean that, but an obvious, honest interest in the subject matter. You know, if you're really into hair and really want a job, I think the person interviewing you can sense that, sense the authenticity of that. So I wouldn't worry too much about trappings. I would worry about looking good yourself, looking appropriate, being polite, listening, not demanding, but offering. And then as far as getting your work out there at this time, yes, I think this time is just like any other time. Everyone's kind of doing the same thing. So yes, we're all doing mannequins. So find a way to make your mannequin look different than everyone else's mannequin. Do a different background than things that you see. Put it at a different angle. Photograph it in black and white, or use an app to make it acid colors, or set yourself apart, because social media is a sea of sameness. Stand out.
Love it. Great recommendations. Let's see. Lastly, you know, I guess ultimately, as we look to wrap up, Charlie, is there any, you know, you've worked with our students in the past, have, you know, we're really proud of, you know, the beauty school experience that our students, you know, experience. You know, not only are we doing interviews with people like Charlie today, we've got Kurt Kneether, who's doing a series of 6 classes for our barbering students. Vivian McKinder is doing a 3-week programming with the students. Wow. I mean, everything we can do on top of our faculty. The students are just really being provided with a lot of opportunity. Is there anything else we could do more for our students? And what has been your experience with our students and working with them when you've been in?
Oh, I think you guys do a great job. I mean, there's a few schools around the country that do it right. And I think you guys have always brought the best people in. And, I'm happy that I could be part of that group, because those are very, being able to be in the same sentence as Vivian and Steven and Kurt is amazing, because they're so accomplished, and especially Vivian and Steven, they're so iconic. I don't think that maybe the students understand, because they've always had that. They might be a little spoiled how good it is. Not all beauty schools are like that. As far as what you could do better, I don't know. I guess I would just say, I don't know this better, but I think right now, really focusing on how social media can help you or hurt you. I started teaching a class, Social Media 101. I'm not an influencer. I definitely am not an Insta famous person, but I definitely need Instagram and Facebook to do what I do. I'm an independent stylist. I don't work for a product company, so it's my lifeline. I think, remember that it defines you and it's out there forever. And so I almost think like workshops and just like labs where a salon, not a hair salon, but a salon of people talking about what works, and also soul searching. What do I want to portray in the world in my social media? Think about, because it really is a picture of who you are. And you don't want it to be a fantasy or an avatar. You want to be, when someone meets you, the same person as you might appear on social media. I've made lots of mistakes. I do a class on what has really not worked for me too.
Sounds great. Well, Charlie, I know the students have had a fantastic experience with you today. For you guys who are still listening on the line, and those who listen to us after this has been taped and out there live, feel free to click the like button if you've enjoyed your experience today. Charlie, I can't thank you enough for sharing your insights. You have been an iconic hairdresser over these last 30 some years, and no doubt you have many more to come. So thank you again for sharing.
Thank you. I appreciate it.
Be well. Thank
Bye-bye.
you.